What if I told you there are secrets so dark, so disturbing that powerful people try to erase them from history? Tonight, we uncover 15 terrifying truths they don't want you to know.
Imagine turning on the evening news, opening a newspaper, or listening to the radio, and realizing that the story you're hearing isn't journalism at all. It's intelligence work, carefully planted, deliberately shaped, and designed to control what you believe about the world. This wasn't science fiction. It was Operation Mockingbird, a Cold War program run by the CIA to secretly manipulate the global media. The roots of the operation go back to the late 1940s, when the United States was gripped by fear of Soviet influence. The CIA realized that tanks and bombs weren't the only weapons of war. Information was just as powerful. If you could control the narrative, you could control the way people thought. And so a covert plan was born: infiltrate the press itself. According to declassified files and whistleblowers, Operation Mockingbird recruited journalists, editors, and even entire news organizations. Reporters were paid to publish propaganda pieces. Foreign correspondents doubled as CIA agents, and stories critical of U.S. policy could be quietly killed before they ever saw the light of day. The reach was astonishing, from the New York Times and Time magazine to international outlets across Europe, Latin America, and Asia. One of the most infamous examples involved covering coups and regime changes abroad. When the U.S. backed a particular side, the press would mysteriously echo the government's position, shaping public opinion at home and abroad. Critics argue that the narrative around conflicts like the Vietnam War was heavily influenced, if not directly managed, by this secret collaboration. By the 1970s, rumors of CIA control over the press became impossible to ignore. The Senate's Church Committee investigation revealed shocking details of media manipulation, surveillance, and political interference. While the CIA officially denied the scale of the operation, some former agents admitted that hundreds of journalists had been on the payroll. The agency later claimed that the program was shut down, but many remain skeptical. After all, intelligence agencies thrive in secrecy. If Mockingbird was truly as powerful as some say, why would it simply vanish? Today, Operation Mockingbird is remembered as one of the most chilling examples of hidden influence, proof that freedom of the press can be an illusion when powerful forces pull the strings. And the haunting question lingers: how can we ever know whether the news we consume is real or just another carefully crafted story?
What if the most dangerous experiment of the Cold War didn't happen in a secret lab, but in a brothel? This is the story of Operation Midnight Climax, one of the CIA's strangest and most disturbing projects. In the 1950s, the United States was obsessed with the idea of mind control. The fear was simple. What if the Soviets could manipulate thought, bend wills, or even turn people into assassins without their knowledge? To counter this, the CIA launched MK-Ultra, a sprawling program of human experimentation. And one of its darkest branches was Midnight Climax. Here's how it worked. The CIA set up safe houses in San Francisco and New York, but they weren't disguised as labs or offices. Instead, they looked like high-end brothels. Sex workers were secretly on the CIA payroll, instructed to lure unsuspecting men into these safe houses. Once inside, the clients were dosed with LSD without their knowledge or consent. Hidden behind one-way mirrors, CIA operatives watched everything unfold, drinking cocktails while taking notes on how the drug affected their targets. The goals were as bizarre as the methods. Could LSD make people easier to manipulate? Could it break down secrets during interrogation? Could it even be weaponized against enemies? The agency treated these men like lab rats, sacrificing their freedom and sanity for national security. Some subjects reportedly suffered terrifying hallucinations, paranoia, and long-term psychological damage. Yet the CIA collected the data casually, as if the entire ordeal were nothing more than entertainment. One former agent later admitted that agents joked about the program, calling it a mix of espionage and pornography. By the 1970s, investigations into MKUltra and Midnight Climax shocked the public. Senate hearings revealed the grotesque details of drugging unsuspecting civilians and using sex as a weapon of control. Officially, the CIA claimed the program was terminated, but how much was destroyed before investigators could see it? How many records were burned, and how many lives were ruined without ever making it into the history books? Operation Midnight Climax stands today as a haunting reminder of how far a government will go when it believes secrecy justifies any means. And it forces us to confront a chilling question. If they were willing to drug innocent people in brothels back then, what secret experiments could still be happening today?
What if the Pentagon spent decades trying to turn psychic visions into military intelligence? It sounds like science fiction, but for roughly a quarter of a century, the US military quietly funded experiments into something called remote viewing, the claimed ability to see distant places and hidden objects with the mind alone. Behind that research was a program that later became known to the public as Project Stargate. The story begins in the 1970s, when reports surfaced that rival powers were researching parapsychology for espionage. Cold War paranoia made the idea irresistible. If an opponent could locate secret bases or eavesdrop on installations using the mind alone, the strategic consequences would be enormous. The US responded by quietly sponsoring work at places like the Stanford Research Institute and other contractors, recruiting a peculiar cast of participants, artists, homemakers, and a handful of people who claimed extraordinary psychic talent. Remote viewers were taught protocols: sit quietly, clear your mind, and describe what you see at a distant target. Their sessions were scored against real locations and objects. Some experiments produced astonishing hits: accurate sketches of unknown facilities, details of hidden equipment, or coordinates that led to verifiable sites. These successes, at least in some cases, convinced a small group of military and intelligence officers that the phenomenon deserved funding and operational testing. Yet the science was messy. Results were inconsistent, hit rates were variable, and skeptics pointed to flawed controls, selective reporting, and the human tendency to find patterns in randomness. Defenders argued that, like any nascent intelligence method, remote viewing needed refinement and careful training. Over the years, Stargate's budget waxed and waned, and its reports were sometimes used tactically to generate leads the CIA or military might follow up with conventional reconnaissance, not as lone decisive evidence. By the early 1990s, the program faced renewed scrutiny. Government panels reviewed the data and methodology and concluded that, while some sessions produced intriguing results, the overall body of evidence did not support reliable operational use. In 1995, the program was terminated and materials were declassified, leaving behind a strange archive of transcripts, sketches, and memos. What remains? For believers, Stargate shows that consciousness still hides capacities we barely understand. For skeptics, it exemplifies how desperation in wartime can drive agencies to try anything that promises an edge. And for everyone else, the story raises a more unsettling question. When national security intersects with the unproven and the occult, what lines will governments cross, and how will we judge the experiments done in our names? Whether you call Stargate folly or foresight, the image of uniformed officers studying hand-drawn psychic sketches is unsettling enough. The haunting idea lingers. Did the Pentagon glimpse something true, or did it only look into the mirror of its own fear?
an ocean tragedy that shocked the world. But what if the ship that sank in 1912 wasn't the Titanic at all? This is one of the strangest theories in maritime history, the claim that the Titanic disaster was actually the result of a switch with her nearly identical sister ship, the Olympic. The official story is well known. On April 15, 1912, the Titanic struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank, taking more than 1,500 lives. It remains the most infamous shipwreck in history. But conspiracy theorists argue that the doomed vessel wasn't the Titanic, it was the Olympic, deliberately disguised and sacrificed. Here's the theory. Both ships were built by the White Star Line. The Olympic launched first in 1911, but soon suffered accidents, including a costly collision with a Royal Navy warship. Some believe that the Olympic was so badly damaged that repairing her properly would bankrupt the company. Instead, the theory goes, White Star secretly swapped the two ships. The Olympic was renamed Titanic and sent to sea under false identity, while the brand new Titanic quietly took the Olympic's name. Why would they do this? According to the theory, the motive was money. By sinking the damaged Olympic under the name of Titanic, White Star could collect a massive insurance payout, and the switch would be nearly impossible to detect. After all, the ships were virtually twins, differing only in small details that most passengers and crew would never notice. Supporters of the theory point to strange coincidences. Crew members who reportedly refused to board the Titanic's maiden voyage because they sensed something was wrong. Photographs showing subtle differences in portholes and windows between the two ships, and the suspicious presence of influential financiers who canceled their trips at the last moment. Of course, mainstream historians reject the switch theory, calling it implausible. The Titanic and Olympic were indeed similar, but not identical. Surviving records, construction logs, and testimonies all confirm that it was truly the Titanic that sank. No credible evidence has ever proven otherwise. Still, the idea refuses to die. The thought that the most famous shipwreck in history might have been an insurance scam captures the imagination and the mistrust of powerful corporations. Was it a desperate plot gone too far, or just another legend born from tragedy? The Titanic's wreck lies in darkness at the bottom of the Atlantic, but the theory of a switched ship still floats, raising a haunting question: do we really know which ship sank that night?
It sounds impossible. How can a country misplace weapons powerful enough to wipe out cities? Yet, that's exactly what happened in the United States. During the Cold War, the US military built and deployed thousands of nuclear bombs. They were symbols of ultimate power, meant to deter enemies. But with so many bombs being transported by planes and submarines, accidents were inevitable. And in some cases, the bombs were lost forever. These incidents are officially called broken arrows. According to declassified reports, at least 32 nuclear accidents occurred between the 1950s and the 1980s. In many cases, the military recovered the weapons, but not always. One of the most famous examples happened in 1966 near Palomares, Spain. A US bomber collided mid-air with a refueling plane, dropping 4 hydrogen bombs. 3 were found on land, badly damaged, but the 4th fell into the sea. It took 80 days, dozens of ships and submarines to finally locate it on the ocean floor. But some bombs were never found at all. In 1958, off the coast of Georgia, a US jet accidentally dropped a nuclear bomb into the waters near Savannah after a mid-air collision. The weapon, known as the Tybee bomb, has never been recovered. To this day, it may still lie buried under sand and mud containing uranium and high explosives. Even more chilling, in 1968, a US bomber crashed into the icy waters near Greenland, scattering radioactive debris. Officially, the Air Force said all weapons were accounted for, but later reports suggested that one hydrogen bomb was missing, lost, frozen somewhere beneath the ice. Why does this matter? Because these bombs weren't harmless. Even if they couldn't fully detonate without activation codes, many contained plutonium and uranium, radioactive material that could poison environments for centuries if released. The Pentagon insists that there's no risk and that most lost bombs are either too deep or too damaged to ever explode. But for locals who live near these sites, Spanish villagers, Greenlandic fishermen, American residents of Savannah, the unease never goes away. So the haunting question remains: how many nuclear weapons are still out there, hidden beneath oceans, ice, or earth? And what would happen if one of them were accidentally discovered, or worse, recovered by the wrong hands? The Cold War is over, but its shadows remain. Somewhere out there, pieces of the world's deadliest technology are waiting in silence.
A story that's almost too strange to believe. Hidden deep in the Nevada desert lies a base so secret, its very existence was denied for decades. This is Area 51. To some, it's just a military testing site. To others, it's the ultimate symbol of government secrecy, the place where humanity's greatest mysteries are locked away. Officially, Area 51 was established during the Cold War as a testing ground for experimental aircraft. The U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, and even stealth technology were all developed here. For years, workers traveled in and out under heavy secrecy, while the government insisted the base didn't even exist. But rumors grew. Locals spotted strange lights in the night sky, objects darting faster than any plane could. Others whispered of crashes, wreckage, and experiments beyond imagination. By the 1980s, Area 51 wasn't just a military base, it was a legend. One of the most explosive claims came from a man named Bob Lazar. In 1989, he went public, claiming he had worked on alien spacecraft inside a facility near Area 51. He described reverse engineering technology that ran on exotic fuel, something no scientist on Earth could explain. According to him, the government was hiding evidence of extraterrestrial life, and Area 51 was the vault. The US government has always denied such stories, admitting only that experimental aircraft were tested there. Skeptics argue that UFO sightings around Area 51 were actually glimpses of secret planes, like the stealth bomber, decades ahead of their time. But believers are not convinced. What about the Roswell crash? What about the supposed autopsies of alien bodies? What about the endless stream of whistleblowers who insist something extraordinary is being hidden in the desert? Even today, the fascination hasn't faded. In 2019, the viral Storm Area 51 event brought millions of people online together joking about rushing the base to see them aliens. The event may have been satirical, but it proved one thing: Area 51 still captures our imagination like no other place on Earth. So what is the truth? Is Area 51 simply a test site for advanced military hardware? Or is it something far stranger, a doorway to secrets humanity isn't ready to face? The desert keeps its silence, the government keeps its denials, and Area 51 remains one of the most mysterious places on the planet.
The government has denied it all, but the rumors say otherwise. A secret plan to stage nothing less than an alien invasion. This is the infamous theory known as Project Bluebeam. According to believers, it was a covert program designed not just to fool the public, but to reshape the entire world order. The idea first appeared in the 1990s when Canadian journalist Serge Monast published documents claiming NASA and the United Nations were preparing a massive deception. Using advanced holographic technology, they would project lifelike images into the sky. Giant UFOs, alien fleets, even religious figures. The purpose? To convince humanity that an extraterrestrial invasion had begun or that a new Messiah had arrived. But why would anyone attempt such a spectacle? The theory suggests that fear and awe could be the ultimate tools of control. If billions of people believed Earth was under attack, governments could unite under a single global authority, a new world order. Borders would dissolve, religions would collapse, and one centralized power could rule unquestioned. Skeptics, of course, dismiss this as pure fantasy. They argue that no technology in the 1990s or even today could project massive holograms visible worldwide. They point out that the documents Manost referenced were never verified. Yet the idea refuses to die. Why? Because strange events continue to fuel it. In recent years, unexplained lights, massive sky projections, and mysterious military exercises have all been interpreted as tests of blue beam technology. In some parts of the world, citizens reported seeing glowing crosses, floating cities, or even UFOs appearing in the clouds, only to vanish. Were these tricks of the atmosphere, or experiments in mass deception? The darker side of the theory goes further. Some claim that Project Bluebeam wouldn't stop at illusions. It might use advanced mind control technology, broadcast directly into people's thoughts, convincing them that the voices of gods or aliens were speaking inside their heads. Officially, no evidence proves such a project ever existed. But that doesn't stop conspiracy theorists from asking, if governments have lied before, why not again? And if the technology to create massive illusions does exist, wouldn't those in power be tempted to use it? The chilling part is not whether Project Bluebeam is real, but what it represents. The possibility that our very perception of reality could be manipulated. So, the next time you look up and see something impossible in the sky, ask yourself, is it a miracle or a message crafted by human hands?
What if the news you trust every day was secretly shaped by the CIA? Imagine watching the evening broadcast, reading a newspaper, or listening to the radio while an invisible hand decides what you can and cannot know. This was not just a conspiracy theory, it was real, and it had a name: Operation Mockingbird. In the late 1940s, during the early years of the Cold War, fear of Soviet influence was everywhere. The CIA realized that weapons and spies were not enough. To control the world, they needed to control information itself. Operation Mockingbird became one of the most shocking secret programs in American history. The mission was simple: infiltrate the press. Journalists, editors, and even entire news agencies were influenced, bribed, or recruited by the CIA. Some cooperated knowingly, others never realized how their work was being manipulated. These were not small fringe outlets. Major newspapers like the Washington Post, the New York Times, and magazines such as Time were part of the network. Even television and radio broadcasters reaching millions of homes were under its shadow. The CIA paid reporters to plant favorable stories, twist inconvenient facts, or bury damaging revelations. Coverage that supported U.S. foreign policy was pushed to the front pages. Narratives that made allies look strong were amplified. But negative reports about CIA operations or government failures quietly disappeared before they ever reached the public. By the 1950s, Operation Mockingbird had expanded into a global web of over 400 journalists working with or for the CIA. Billions of dollars were spent over decades to make sure America's version of reality dominated headlines around the world. Foreign elections were swayed, wars were justified, and entire populations shaped their views based on carefully constructed illusions. One striking example came in 1954 during the CIA-backed coup in Guatemala. The American press portrayed it as a fight for freedom against communism. In truth, it was a coup designed to protect corporate interests. Most Americans never knew the difference.
In 1976, the U.S. Senate Church Committee finally exposed parts of Mockingbird. The revelation shocked the nation. The free press was not as free as people believed. Officially, the CIA claimed the program had ended, but many remained convinced its tactics simply evolved, hidden in new forms of influence. Today, when you watch the news or scroll through social media, one question remains: are you truly seeing the truth, or just the lingering shadow of Operation Mockingbird?
On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 vanished without a trace, becoming one of the greatest aviation mysteries of modern times. The Boeing 777, carrying 239 passengers and crew, took off from Kuala Lumpur, heading for Beijing. Just 40 minutes after departure, the plane disappeared from radar, and it was never seen again. At first, authorities believed it had simply crashed, but as search teams scoured the South China Sea, nothing was found. Then came a chilling discovery. Military radar data showed the plane had turned sharply off course, flying back across Malaysia and into the Indian Ocean. For hours, it continued flying silently, with no distress calls, before finally vanishing forever. Theories quickly spread. Some believed the plane suffered a sudden mechanical failure or fire, and the pilots tried desperately to turn back. Others argue it was a deliberate act, that the captain intentionally diverted the flight in a suicide mission. Investigators even looked into the possibility of hijacking or terrorism, but no conclusive evidence ever emerged. Over the years, only small fragments of wreckage have washed up on distant shores like Madagascar and Reunion Island. These pieces confirm that the aircraft did indeed end up in the Indian Ocean, but the main wreckage and the black boxes, which hold the flight data and cockpit recordings, have never been found. Without them, the truth remains locked away. The mystery deepened with strange details. Why did communication systems shut down one by one as if manually disabled? Why were no distress signals set, even as the plane flew for hours? And how could such a massive aircraft vanish in an age of satellites and global tracking? The disappearance of MH370 sparked the most expensive search in aviation history, covering vast stretches of ocean floor. Yet after years of effort and billions of dollars spent, the search was officially suspended in 2018. For the families of the passengers, the lack of answers is unbearable. To this day, Flight MH370 remains unsolved. It is a haunting reminder that even in our modern, highly connected world, entire aircraft can still vanish without explanation, leaving behind only fragments, questions, and grief.
In the summer of 1977, astronomer Jerry Emmon was scanning the skies with the Big Ear radio telescope in Ohio when he noticed something extraordinary. On a computer printout of radio signals from space, a single sequence of numbers and letters stood out. It was so strong and unusual that Emmon circled it in red ink and wrote one word in the margin: "Wow." That scribble would become the name of one of the greatest mysteries in the search for extraterrestrial life, the WOW signal. The signal lasted just 72 seconds. It came from the constellation Sagittarius, a region of the sky that astronomers often study in the hope of detecting alien transmissions. What made it remarkable was its intensity and frequency. It matched exactly what scientists had theorized an extraterrestrial broadcast might look like: narrow, concentrated, and distinct from any known natural source. But then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. The signal was never detected again, despite countless attempts over the years to find a repeat. Explanations have ranged from the mundane to the extraordinary. Some scientists suggested it might have been interference from Earth, perhaps a stray signal from a satellite or aircraft.
Others argued it could have been a natural cosmic phenomenon we don't yet understand, but no definitive explanation has ever been agreed upon. For many, the WOW signal remains the best candidate for evidence of intelligent life beyond Earth. Its characteristics fit too neatly with what researchers were looking for: a clear, strong transmission, seemingly from deep space, with no obvious human or natural origin. The mystery is heightened by the fact that it has never been replicated. If it was a natural event, why haven't we seen it again? If it was interference, why couldn't it be traced? And if it truly was a message, why did it happen only once? Decades later, the WOW signal continues to inspire debate, fascination, and hope. It reminds us how vast the universe is and how little we truly know about what or who might be out there, waiting to be discovered.
On the coast of Cyprus lies one of the strangest and eeriest places in the modern world, the abandoned city of Varosha. Once a glamorous seaside resort, known as the French Riviera of Cyprus, it was a favorite destination of celebrities and wealthy tourists in the 1960s and early 1970s. Its beaches were lined with luxury hotels, restaurants, and shops, and it was considered one of the most desirable vacation spots in the Mediterranean. But in 1974, everything changed. Following a political conflict and the Turkish invasion of Cyprus, the residents of Varosha fled in panic. Within days, the entire city was emptied. Hotels were left with beds unmade, shops with clothes still on racks, and cars abandoned in the streets. The booming resort town became a ghost city almost overnight. What makes Varosha even chilling is that it has remained frozen in time ever since. The Turkish military fenced off the area, declaring it a forbidden zone. For decades, no one was allowed to enter except soldiers and UN peacekeepers. The once bustling resort decayed in silence, with nature slowly reclaiming the buildings. Windows shattered, palm trees grew through hotel floors, and the city became a haunting reminder of sudden loss. There are countless stories of how locals fled, believing they would return in a few weeks. But the weeks became years, and the years became decades. Generations grew up hearing about Varosha, but never seeing it. To this day, thousands of former residents dream of reclaiming their homes, but political disputes keep the city locked in limbo. In recent years, parts of Varosha have been cautiously reopened to visitors, but much of it remains sealed off. Walking its empty streets feels like stepping into a time capsule from 1974. Abandoned hotels, rusting cars, and crumbling storefronts give the eerie impression that life was simply paused and never resumed. Varosha is more than just a ghost city. It is a symbol of conflict, division, and the fragility of human civilization. Once the jewel of the Mediterranean, it now stands as a haunting reminder of how quickly paradise can turn into ruin.
Hidden deep within the redwood forests of California lies one of the most secretive and controversial places in America, Bohemian Grove. Every summer, some of the world's most powerful men, politicians, business magnates, and cultural icons gather there for 2 weeks of exclusive rituals, entertainment, and private discussions. The origins of Bohemian Grove date back to 1872, when a group of artists, writers, and journalists founded the Bohemian Club in San Francisco. What began as a cultural circle for creative minds soon transformed into a gathering place for the global elite. By the 20th century, US presidents, military leaders, and CEOs of major corporations were among its members. What makes Bohemian Grove so notorious are not just the names involved, but the secrecy surrounding the events. Cameras, recordings, and outsiders are strictly forbidden. The 2,700-acre camp is heavily guarded, and membership costs are astronomical. Inside, members are said to engage in bizarre performances, music, and theatrical rituals. The most infamous of these is the cremation of care ceremony, where members gather before a giant owl statue to symbolically cast away their worldly concerns in a dramatic, almost cult-like ritual. This secrecy has fueled countless conspiracy theories. Some believe that behind the drinking and plays, real decisions about wars, economics, and world politics are being made. Critics argue that such private gatherings allow powerful men to influence global affairs without transparency. For example, it has been noted that discussions at Bohemian Grove preceded major political events, including the planning of U.S. policy during World War II. In 2000, journalist Alex Jones managed to secretly film inside the Grove, capturing the cremation of care ritual. The footage sparked public outrage and confirmed that at least some of the strange rumors were true. Still, defenders of the club insist it is nothing more than a private retreat for relaxation and networking. Whether harmless tradition or shadowy power gathering, Bohemian Grove continues to fascinate and disturb. The idea of world leaders and billionaires performing secret rituals in the woods raises unsettling questions. Is it simply theater or a mask for something far more influential? To this day, Bohemian Grove stands as a symbol of secrecy among the elite, a reminder that while the world watches public politics, the real conversations may be happening behind closed doors, far from the public eye.
Few organizations have sparked as much mystery and speculation as the Bilderberg Club. Since its first meeting in 1954, the group has become synonymous with secrecy, power, and influence. Every year, around 120 to 150 of the world's most powerful people, including political leaders, bankers, CEOs, and royalty, gather behind closed doors to discuss global issues. And yet, almost nothing is revealed to the public. The Bilderberg Club was named after the Hotel de Bilderberg in the Netherlands, where the first meeting was held. Its original purpose was to strengthen cooperation between Europe and the United States during the Cold War. But over time, the annual conference grew into something far more controversial, a private meeting where the world's elites could talk freely without media or public oversight. The rules are strict. Journalists are not allowed inside. No recordings or transcripts are published. Attendees are forbidden from quoting or revealing what others have said. This extreme secrecy has given rise to countless conspiracy theories. Some believe the Bilderberg Club is a shadow government, pulling the strings behind wars, financial crises, and even technological change. Confirmed guest lists over the years include U.S. presidents, European prime ministers, the heads of multinational corporations, and directors of major banks. With so many influential figures in one place, critics argue it is naive to think no important decisions are made there. For example, it has been suggested that discussions at Bilderberg foreshadowed the creation of the euro, NATO strategies, and even the Iraq War. Defenders of the club insist the meetings are simply a forum for informal discussion, a safe space where leaders can exchange ideas without political pressure. They argue that no binding decisions are made. Still, the refusal to release any details only fuels suspicion. Protests often erupt near Bilderberg meeting locations, with activists accusing the group of elitism and undemocratic secrecy. The heavy security surrounding each event, armed guards, roadblocks, and restricted airspace only adds to the sense of mystery. Whether the Bilderberg Club is a harmless think tank or a global power network remains hotly debated. What is undeniable, however, is that year after year, some of the most powerful individuals on Earth gather in secret, and the rest of the world is left to wonder what is truly being decided behind those closed doors.
Among the strangest space-related mysteries is the legend of the Black Knight satellite, a mysterious object said to be orbiting Earth for thousands of years. Unlike modern satellites launched by humans, the Black Knight is often described as something far older, possibly even of extraterrestrial origin. The story of the Black Knight began in the late 19th century when inventor Nikola Tesla claimed to have received unusual radio signals from space in 1899. At the time, many dismissed his claims, but in later decades, similar unexplained signals were reported by amateur radio operators. Some suggested they came from an unknown satellite in orbit around Earth. In the 1950s, U.S. newspapers published reports about a strange object circling the planet detected by radar. This was before the Soviet Union had even launched Sputnik, which only fueled speculation. During the Cold War, both the United States and the USSR monitored the skies closely, and strange, unidentified objects were sometimes recorded. The Black Knight legend grew stronger in 1998 when NASA released photographs taken during the STS-88 space shuttle mission. The images showed a dark, irregularly shaped object floating above Earth. NASA explained that it was likely a piece of thermal blanket that had drifted away during construction of the International Space Station, but many were not convinced. Conspiracy theorists argued that the shape was too unusual, too structured to be mere space debris. Supporters of the theory believe the Black Knight could be an ancient probe placed in orbit by an advanced alien civilization thousands of years ago. Some even connect it to myths of watchers or sky gods found in ancient cultures. Others think it may be evidence of long-forgotten human technology lost to history. Skeptics point out that there is no hard evidence to prove the satellite exists. NASA's explanation of space junk remains the mainstream view. Yet the images, combined with Tesla's mysterious signals and decades of scattered reports, keep the legend alive. Today, the Black Knight remains one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries of space. Whether it is simply a piece of space debris or something far more extraordinary, it continues to spark imagination and debate. The idea that something ancient, watching silently from above, could be orbiting our planet adds an eerie layer to humanity's quest to explore the cosmos.
In late 2016, strange reports began to emerge from U.S. diplomats stationed in Havana, Cuba. They described hearing high-pitched sounds, followed by dizziness, headaches, memory problems, and even hearing loss. Soon, similar cases appeared in China, Europe, and even Washington, D.C. The phenomenon became known as the Havana Syndrome, one of the most baffling modern mysteries. At first, many suspected it was caused by some kind of sonic weapon. Victims often recalled hearing strange buzzing, humming, or clicking noises just before symptoms began. Doctors observed brain injuries resembling those caused by concussions despite no physical trauma. This led to speculation that a hidden device was targeting diplomats with directed energy. The U.S. government launched multiple investigations, but results were inconclusive. Some intelligence reports suggested the involvement of microwave radiation, possibly as part of secret surveillance or weapon experiments. Others pointed to foreign adversaries, claiming that Russia or another state might be behind the attacks. However, no evidence has ever been made public. Skeptics argue that the syndrome may have psychological origins. Stress, fear, and mass hysteria could explain why so many people developed similar symptoms. In some cases, recordings of the mystery sounds were analyzed and identified as the calls of local crickets, suggesting that natural explanations were overlooked. Yet this theory fails to explain the brain injuries found in some patients. What makes the Havana syndrome even more unsettling is its spread. By 2021, hundreds of cases had been reported worldwide among diplomats, CIA officers, and embassy staff. Victims often described long-term health effects that disrupted their lives and careers. The secrecy surrounding official investigations has only fueled suspicion that the truth is being hidden. As of today, the Havana syndrome remains unresolved. U.S. agencies have publicly downplayed the idea of a coordinated attack, but admit they cannot fully explain the phenomenon. Some scientists insist it must involve directed energy weapons, while others see it as a mix of environmental factors and psychological stress. The real answer may still be hidden. Whether it was a deliberate attack, a new kind of technology, or a tragic misunderstanding, the Havana syndrome shows how little we understand about the weapons and pressures of modern geopolitics. For now, it remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries of the 21st century.
Which of these secrets shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video, share it, and subscribe for more hidden truths every week. Your support keeps these stories alive.